This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome to Asean in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles and we're coming to you live from Manila and Vietnam. From Vietnam, here is Eliana. Hello, Eliana.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon. I'm Eliana Faith Sebastian from EBC Vietnam Bureau, giving you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. The U.S. State Department has ordered the departure of non-essential diplomats from Myanmar. It said in a statement amid a crackdown on protesters that has killed hundreds since the country's military coup began.
4 activists have been jailed for up to 10 years after Vietnamese courts found them guilty of spreading anti-state propaganda.
The New York City Police Department has released surveillance footage of an attack on a 65-year-old Asian-American woman, a Filipina, believed to be of Filipino descent, asking for the public's assistance in identifying the individual who kicked this woman to the ground and who the NYPD says made anti-Asian statements toward her.
A Filipina who was sacked as a domestic worker in Hong Kong after being diagnosed with cancer, a case that exposed the vulnerability of low-paid foreign workers, has passed away, a friend confirmed Wednesday.
The U.S. State Department has ordered the departure of non-essential diplomats from Myanmar, it said in a statement, amid a crackdown on protesters that has killed hundreds since the country's military coup began. Daily rallies across Myanmar by unarmed demonstrators demanding the restoration of the elected government and the release of civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi have been met with tear gas, rubber bullets, and live rounds. In mid-February, the State Department authorized a voluntary departure of non-emergency U.S. government employees and their family members, according to the statement, adding that the department had updated that status to ordered departure. A spokesperson said the Department of State made the decision to authorize ordered departure from Burma because the safety and security of U.S. government personnel and their dependents, as well as private U.S. citizens, is the department's highest priority. The civilian death toll from the military's crackdown has now passed 520, with world powers ramping up their condemnation of the military's campaign in the wake of its February 1 coup. The ordered departure status will be reviewed in 30-day increments. The U.S., Britain, and EU have all imposed sanctions in response to the coup and the crackdown, but so far, diplomatic pressure has not persuaded the generals to ease off.
Civilians wounded in Myanmar airstrikes on rebel positions spoke of their terrifying ordeal after trekking through jungle to seek medical treatment across the border in Thailand. Military jets hit targets in eastern Cayenne state over the weekend as Myanmar reeled from the deadliest day so far in the junta's crackdown on anti-coup protests. Now Ita, one of a handful who managed to cross the Salween River, which marks the border with Thailand, on Tuesday to seek medical treatment, described the moments the bombs hit.
เห็นบาดแผลก็รู้สึกเจ็บปวดแทนเขาเหมือนกันที่ ที่ต้องโดนระเบิดโดนปืนใหญ่ยิงเข้ามาอะไรเงี้ยครับเราก็ให้การดูแลรักษานำเรือข้ามมาจากฝั่งประเทศพม่าครับเข้ามาที่ฝั่งประเทศไทยเราก็ไปดำเนินการคัดกรองผู้ป่วยเบื้องต้นแล้วก็ให้การดูแลเบื้องต้นในแต่ละคน
Dr. Chakri also said he had heard there were people with more serious wounds still trapped on the Myanmar side of the river, unable to cross because of the severity of their injuries. Karen groups say as many as 3,000 people fled across the river into Thailand after the airstrikes before being sent back to Myanmar, though Thai officials insist they were not forced back. The Thai Foreign Ministry said late Tuesday about 2,300 have returned to Myanmar and about 550 remain in Thailand. The strikes targeted territory held by the Karen National Union, or the KNU, one of the nation's largest ethnic armed groups, which had earlier seized a military base. They marked the Myanmar's military's first use of airstrikes against the KNU in 20 years and sent around 7,000 Karen villagers fleeing for safety, according to the armed group.
In other news, a Myanmar toddler has miraculously survived a weekend airstrike that killed his father in their bamboo hut near the Kuhit country's border with Thailand. On Saturday night, the Myanmar military launched the first airstrikes in Karen State in 20 years, hours after a rebel group had seized a military base. Now, among the targets hit was the bamboo hut of Saw Tai A Kalu Mutau, almost 3 years old, who lives in the Dae Budo Valley with his farmer parents. He was sitting on his dad's lap at the time, and the shrapnel from the bomb killed his father. The boy has lacerations to his neck and has some fragments still in him, according to David Eubank from the Free Burma Rangers, saying the father saw I Lai 227 died instantly. Health workers are concerned the little boy could develop an infection from the metal fragments and are giving him antibiotics right now.
A Chinese city near the border with Myanmar has imposed a lockdown after 6 coronavirus cases were reported Wednesday, the first significant cluster of COVID-19 disclosed in almost 2 months. Three asymptomatic cases in Ruili, a city of over 210,000 people, were also recorded as Myanmar nationals aged between 24 and 28, according to health authorities in Yunnan province. Ruili is a major crossing point from Use in neighboring Myanmar, which has seen escalating unrest since a February 1 military coup, raising fears that people may flood across the border if the violence intensifies. On Wednesday, Yunnan health authorities in China warned they would severely crack down on illegal border crossings and organizers or harbors, although they did not directly link the outbreak to irregular movement from Myanmar. Ruili will also test all its residents for the virus, and everyone will go under home quarantine for a week, said an official notice. This means that residents are not to leave their homes without special reasons, and only one member of each household can leave to buy daily necessities with permission. Myanmar's security forces have killed hundreds as they contend with massive pro-democracy rallies across the country, demanding the restoration of the elected government. The country's borders remain closed to most foreigners, and infections in recent months have been from returning overseas nationals.
In other news, 4 activists have been jailed for up to 10 years after Vietnamese courts found them guilty of spreading anti-state propaganda. Vietnam's communist government is swearing in a new cabinet. With top leaders taking office in the next few days, it is also preparing for legislative elections in May for the rubber stamp National Assembly that has around 500 members. Pressure on human rights activists has coincided with these political events, according to observers. In the southern Central Highlands province of Lamdong on Tuesday, activist Vu Tien Chi, 55, was jailed for 10 years for sharing and posting online articles allegedly defaming the Communist Party and Vietnamese leaders. Since 2018, Chi has shared 338 articles and posted 181 videos on his personal accounts on Facebook and YouTube, questioning the policies of the state and the government. Chi had the intention of establishing a new parliament to replace the contemporary National Assembly, according to state media. In the nearby coastal province of Can Mo, 3 others aged between 25 and 59 years old were jailed between 5 and 9 years on the same charge. One of them was accused of live streaming the burning of the country's flag before Vietnam's Liberation Day in April last year. According to Amnesty International, political prisoners in Vietnam have doubled from 84 to 170 since 2016.
A billionaire Thai opposition figure was charged Tuesday with defaming the monarchy after he questioned the government's alleged over-reliance on coronavirus vaccines from a company linked to the royal family. Thanathorn Juangrongruangkit, founder of the now-dissolved Future Forward Party, posted a video on Facebook in January in which he queried whether Thailand was leaning too heavily on Siam Bioscience for its vaccination campaign. The company is owned by the Crown Property Bureau, which manages the royal family's multi-billion-dollar fortune. Police on Tuesday charged Thanathorn with lèse-majesté and a computer crime over the video, but he was defiant. It has had a positive result, encouraging the government to reassess the vaccine policy to manage the COVID-19 situation. There is nothing to worry about, he said after being charged. The police did not bring up any codes or anything that was said specifically. It was generally charged for speaking via Facebook. Those convicted under Thailand's strict royal defamation laws can face up to 15 years in jail per charge. Thailand has ordered 61 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Siam Bioscience plans to manufacture 200 million doses of that vaccine for the kingdom and wider region each year. Thanathorns will have to report to police again on May 7.
In other news, the New York City Police Department has released surveillance footage of an attack on a 65-year-old Asian American woman believed to be of Filipino descent. They're asking for the public's assistance in identifying the individual who kicked the woman to the ground and who the NYPD said made anti-Asian statements toward her. Take a look.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
This 2021 ang babago sa inyong kapagkainan dahil may kantahan,
kainan at katatawanan.
Roll into one!
Ito ang It's Sing Time! Lunes hanggang Biyernes,
Alas 8 ng gabi,
only here at
Net 25! It's singing time.
Welcome back to Asean in Focus. Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha mulls allowing vaccinated foreign visitors to bypass regular quarantine. Faye Barta joins us live. Hello, Faye.
Good afternoon to you, Eliana, and to all our viewers. According to the CCSA, or the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration, there are five attractions which are under safety zones. There is one in Chonburi, there is one in Nan Province, there is one in Chiang Mai, and there are two in Bangkok. And in line with this, Eliana, in this recent week, Phuket business community has submitted a tourism promotion plan to the Center for Economic Situation Administration, or the CESA. This tourism promotion plan, Eliana, is to allow Phuket province to receive foreign tourists who have been already vaccinated against COVID-19 without undergoing the mandated quarantine. And the status of this plan, or the status of this proposal, is actually been published and open for the public now under Bangkok Post. And the Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha said that he actually agreed to consider this proposal because there are the five major attractions, or the five attractions under the safety zones are open for tourists, however, in a particular area. But Phuket province, they want to have a they want to fully reopen the province to receive foreign tourists to boost the economic situation there under tourism. And he said, the General Prayut Chan-o-cha said that it would be, he can take care of it. He can take care of it as long as there would be a safety measures that could follow. Another one, General Prayut said that there should be a digital platform to be created to register the tourists to enter there in Phuket province. Another thing, Eliana, is the Deputy Bangkok Governor, Supon Pisutiwong, in his capacity as the head of Bangkok's COVID-19 Situation Administration Center, according to him, that each district office has been told to rein in the markets and determine if they meet the ventilation and hygiene standards. Back to you, Eliana.
All right, thank you for your updates there in Thailand. Faye, stay safe and stay healthy.
Likewise, Eliana, this is Faye Barter reporting live here in Thailand, and we live in interesting times.
In other news, the National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar here in the Philippines, Secretary Carlito Galvez, said the Philippines will receive 100,000 doses of Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine from Russia's Gamaleya Research Institute. However, Secretary Galvez said that our government will continue to negotiate to buy 3 million more doses. Here's why. Take a look.
April po, sigurado na po yung 1.5 million, Mr. President. Sa April meron tayong Sinovac at meron na po tayong 2 million sa May. Napirmahan na po namin ni Secretary Duque yung procurement order. At hopefully ay darating po yun on time. Most likely, mga mid of April po. And then, meron din po tayong in-order po na Gamaleya, ito po yung Sputnik. Ang inire-request po sana natin 3 million. Pero ang nakomit po nila is 100,000 lang po. Pero sa ngayon po, nag-usap po kami ni Secretary Locsin at saka ni Yusek Dodo Dulay. Nakakausapin po nila si Prime Minister Lavrov. At titingnan po nila kung maiangat po ng 3 million. Talaga pong 3 million ang kailangan natin dahil kasi pwede po itong gamitin sa senior citizen yung ano po natin. Kasi sa ngayon po, meron po tayong limitation na hindi po dumating yung AstraZeneca na vaccine natin na galing sa COVAX.
During the Laging Handa public briefing on Tuesday, Dr. Jose Rene de Grano, President of Private Hospitals of the Philippines Incorporated, said that they liaise with the Department of Health's One Hospital Command Center at all times as it is a reliable referral system for individuals infected with COVID-19. Let's take a look.
Yung po ang talagang ginagamit namin kasi right now, yung One Hospital Command Center, sila po talaga ang medyo nakakaalam kung ano talaga ang mga available pa na kama, let's say, sa loob ng National Capital Region. Kaya lahat po ikino-coordinate namin sa kanila at yun din po ang ginagawa namin kung halimbawa ang mga hospital po namin ay maraming tumatawag at talagang wala na rin pong kaming paglagyan. Sinasabi na po namin sa kanila na doon po sila tumawag sa One Hospital Command Center na sa ganun po ay mas madali silang mai-transfer o mabigyan ng mga facilities na available pa po ang mga kama.
Staying at the same Laging Handa public briefing yesterday, the ILG Philippine Undersecretary Martin Dino also said that they plan to go from house to house, distributing in-kind government assistance to families and communities throughout Mega Manila area or the NCR+. Let's take a listen.
Dalawa yung inilatag kahapon, yun ng 1,000 per person, tapos meron 4,000 per family. So ayusin pang mabuti yan, pero ang malinaw sa akin ay ang ayuda na ibibigay ay in-kind na. So ngayon ito dalawa din ang it's either ibibigay sa mga city mayor or ang city mayor will deliver to the barangay. Alam mo naman, Rocky, nung nakaraang West Trans, yung ayuda, hindi naman talaga sa barangay na tumulong lang ang barangay sa buong Pilipinas. Ang pera ay nabigay sa mga city treasurer at saka sa municipal treasurer. Kaya nung ibinaba sa barangayan, ang ginawang tulong lang ng barangay noon ay iayos ang venue, siguraduhin ng social distancing, at saka yung mga facilities at saka yung security ay iayos. Now, pagdating sa ayuda at pagkain ng pinag-usapan, makita naman natin na nung nagpamigay ng pagkain ng barangay at ang mga city of municipality, nagkaroon tayo ng tinatawag na house to house. Sa mga bahay, direktang binibigay para masigurado natin na walang lalabas ng bahay dahil during the ECQ, nung una natin pinatupad yan, talagang completely walang makakalabas ng bahay. Ang lalabas lang dyan yung nabigyan ng quarantine pass. Kaya lang ang pagka-diferensya ngayon ay pinapayagan na lumabas yung mga nagtatrabaho. Kaya ngayon, pag lumabas ka ng bahay, sisiguraduhin mo na meron ka ID na ipakikita na ikaw ay papunta dun sa hanap buhay na pupuntahan mo. So ngayon, itong ating pinag-aandaan at kung ganyan ang sistema, kayang-kaya na ng barangay dahil isang taon na tayo dito eh. Kaya ako, masisigurado ko na yung distribution na yan ay mapapabilis. Depende yan, pag nabigay sa mayor, depende kung paano i-deliver ng mayor sa barangay. Pero kung barangay lang ang pag-uusapan, pag na-deliver sa barangay yan, pinakamatagal niya na ng 2 araw, madi-deliver lahat yan. Dahil may sarili-sariling tauhan ang mga barangay up to street level. Palagay ko madadagdagan ngayon, no? Hindi ko pa alam kung ano yung magiging scheme dahil merong sinabi kagabi na meron daw kada mamamayan may 1,000. Paklaruhin natin ang mabuti yun. No, kung ano yung binabanggit na yon at ano yung 4,000 per family. Pero kami, nakahanda ang barangay dyan, may listahan kami. Kung ang listahan na gagamitin ay yung listahan ng first tranche na kung saan, kasi per family yun, ano? At naging smooth naman, meron lang mga ibang ilan na mga reklamo na kung saan meron daw namili, may naghati-hati. Ito in kind ang ipamimigay natin at definitely nagtanda na yung mga ilang pasaway na barangay dahil 89 na barangay captain ang nasuspindi dyan. No? At dito nakakonsentrate naman tayo sa Greater Metro Manila.
On Tuesday, DILG Philippines Undersecretary Martin Dino assured the public that they will file cases against local officials who take advantage of the government's in-kind assistance for affected families in the Mega Manila area.
Palagay ko makakatiya kayo dahil in the event na meron na naman, hindi naman tayo titigil ng pagpapail ng reklamo laban dito sa mga barangay official na magsasamantala na naman dito sa ayuda na to. At hindi kami mangingimi na magsuspinde o magtanggal dahil lang dito. Pero ako naman, mahiya naman kayo. Pagkain lang to. Biro mo ito pang dahilan para matanggal kayo sa pwesto nyo o kaya ay masuspindi kayo. Tandaan nyo, malapit na eleksyon. Baka mamaya maalala ng mga tao ang mga pang-aabuso na ginawa ninyo. At dapat siguro umayos kayo ngayon dahil ang presidente na ang nag-uutos sa inyo niyan. At ako naman, pagka ako inutusan ng ganyan, agad-agad, nagpapail tayo ng reklamo. At of course, nagpapasalamat din ako sa ombudsman dahil agad-agad din silang kumikilos para dun sa suspension ng mga inireklamo sa atin.
A Vietnam Airlines flight attendant was handed a 2-year suspended jail term for spreading the coronavirus, Vietnamese state media said on Tuesday. Du Wong Tan Hao broke his 2-week home quarantine requirement and met 46 people after working on a repatriation flight from Japan in November, according to the country's official government website. The 29-year-old was convicted of spreading dangerously infectious diseases in a court in southern Ho Chi Minh City on Tuesday. According to the metropolis official mouthpiece, the Pap Lua Tan Po Ho Chi Minh. The communist nation has used extensive contact tracing and mandatory mass quarantines to keep virus numbers low. It has recorded only around 2,600 infections and 35 deaths among its population of 98 million. Hao broke quarantine rules a week ago, a week after arriving home, and a COVID-19 test showed he was positive for the virus several days after. Now, before the test, he had met friends and took part in a contest at a Ho Chi Minh City university, according to media reports. He spread the virus to 3 people, according to the city mouthpiece, which added the livelihoods of more than 2,000 city residents were affected, with 861 people put under mandatory quarantine and 1,400 others locked down at home. Prosecutors said House moves caused a total material loss of $190,000 US.
A Filipina who was sacked as a domestic worker in Hong Kong after being diagnosed with cancer, a case that exposed the vulnerability of low-paid foreign workers, has passed away, a friend confirmed Wednesday. Baby Jane Alas, 40, was told she had stage 3 cervical cancer 2 years ago and was promptly fired by her employer, who cited the illness as the reason for termination. The The single mother of 5 instantly lost the right to health care and had to regularly apply for visa extensions as she navigated Hong Kong's legal and immigration systems while battling cancer. Supporters crowdfunded her treatment and alas had successfully overcome her cancer. But she died on Saturday from complications related to a kidney infection. Jessica Cotrera, an American national in Hong Kong who led the crowdfunding campaign and took alas and said, "Baby Jane has passed away suddenly last weekend at her home in the Philippines. Alas was awarded 30,000 Hong Kong dollars, damages from her former employer who hailed from a wealthy Hong Kong family of Pakistani origin for sickness allowance, medical fees, and wages in lieu of notice. She returned to the Philippines last year but had hoped to return to Hong Kong for work. Hong Kong's Equal Opportunities Commission also took up her plight earlier this year, launching a separate discrimination case against her former employer. Catrera, who also employs Alice's sister, said the family hoped to continue pursuing the discrimination case on behalf of her estate. She said her sister flew back today to be with the family, and we are now focusing on figuring out what is needed for the surviving children. Nearly 370,000 domestic helpers work in Hong Kong. Most are poor women from the Philippines and Indonesia, working for low wages, often living in grime conditions, and sending much of their wages back home to support their families. City authorities say the system is fair and that abuses are rare. But rights campaigners said domestic helpers are routinely exploited, with laws providing them little protection. Experts say steep agency fees, a requirement for maids to live with their employers, a minimum monthly wage of just 4,630 Hong Kong dollars, and rules that require fired domestic workers to quickly depart the city leave maids acutely vulnerable to abusive or unscrupulous employers. The U.S. State Department placed Hong Kong on par with Cambodia, Pakistan, and Nigeria in its annual human trafficking rankings, partly because of the lack of protections offered to domestic helpers.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights, sharpen your instincts for smart decision making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Totoo ang kasabihang may pera sa basura, lalo na kung magagawa ang iba't ibang bagay mula sa mga recyclable material na inaakala ng iba na itatapon na. May ilang barangay sa bansa ang nagre-recycle ng basura at makikita ang iba't ibang bagay na gawa sa basura. Mga dekorasyon sa bahay, mga proyektong ito, nagiging malinis ang kapaligiran bukod sa mayroon pang pagkakakitaan.
Welcome back. The United States will seize products made by Malaysia's Top Glove after concluding the firm uses forced labor, according to officials, dealing a fresh blow to the world's biggest surgical glove maker. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, had already banned gloves from 2 of Top Glove's subsidiaries last year after saying it suspected the company was committing labor abuses. It went a step further on Monday, announcing it had sufficient information to conclude that Top Glove uses forced labor. The federal agency said it would seize any gloves manufactured by the firm at U.S. ports of entry. Top Glove shares were down more than 5% following the news. Announcing the initial ban last year, CBP said it believed there was evidence of debt bondage, excessive overtime, and abusive working and living conditions in Top Glove's production processes. The company said Tuesday it was seeking to resolve the matter with U.S. authorities.
The Philippines would like to secure the support of the 11 members of the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the CPTPP, formerly as the TPP, as the country eyes to join the trade pact. Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, Undersecretary Seferino Rodolfo told reporters in a virtual chat last week that their priority is to talk with the CPTPP members that do not have free trade agreement with the Philippines. These countries include Canada, Chile, Mexico, and Peru. The country will engage with Chile through a joint economic committee to negotiate a preferential trade agreement, he said, adding the Canada's intention for an FTA with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or the Asean, where the Philippines is a member state, will also be helpful in the country's journey to joining CPTPP. Rodolfo said the DTI has yet to have talks with Mexico and Peru, but eyes to calendar discussions with their counterparts from these Latin American countries. Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez has directed trade officials to re-explore the opportunities for the country in joining the Trans-Pacific deal as part of his policy direction to support free, open, and fair trade to create investment and employment opportunities for the Philippines. Rodolfo said Lopez has sent a letter to New Zealand Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade Damian O'Connor on February 3, formally inquiring about the process to join the CPTPP deal. Other CPTPP members are ASEAN countries such as Brunei, Malaysia, Singapore, and Vietnam, as well as Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, which are part of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, where the Philippines is a signatory. Vietnam's economy continued to expand in the first 3 months of the year, officials said Monday, thanks to the government's success in containing the worst of the coronavirus. And while the 4.48% rate given by the General Statistics Office was below forecasts in a Bloomberg survey, it was better than the same period last year, and the government said it hoped to chalk up annual growth of 6.5% for 2021. Vietnam has long been one of the best performing economies in Asia and was one of the few in the world to expand last year, owing to strict pandemic measures including massive contact tracing and mandatory quarantine. So far, it has recorded only around 2,600 infections and 35 deaths among its population of 98 million. The results showed Vietnam has realized effectively the double objective of fighting the pandemic while developing its economy, the Statistics Office said in a statement, adding that the 6.5% target was a huge challenge for the government and the people. The office said that to remain on target, Vietnam must speed up vaccination efforts, provide business support packages, and accelerate public investment projects. So far, Vietnam has vaccinated more than 45,000 people, mostly medical and frontline workers, with the AstraZeneca vaccine. The health ministry said its first domestically developed vaccine would be ready for use next year.
In other news, independent experts convened by the World Health Organization formally reported that COVID-19 likely spread from animals and not from the Chinese laboratory. The lead investigator said that all sides tried to influence their report, but to no avail. Let's listen in.
I think there was, that's accepted by everybody. There was a lot of attention, a lot of pressure on all this work. We also had the entire world following every move we made during our stay in Wuhan, whether during quarantine or after the quarantine, the first quarantine period. And of course, there was a lot of interest from all sides. And I think, as you said, of course, there was political pressure from all sides, also outside China. But I think we were able to create a space for the science, a space for the two groups of scientists that were together. We had nothing to hide, so there was no problem working in an open environment. It is perfectly possible that you would have earlier cases, sporadic cases circulating in and around Wuhan before December, let's say November, and potentially also October 2019, and potentially that some of them were also traveling abroad and seeding and transmitting the disease abroad, again in sporadic way elsewhere during November and earlier December. But because of the strong suspicion of certain bat species being the host of this virus and having found other relatively close virus strains to SARS-CoV-2 in the region, also in Southeast Asia in general, where these bats are living, is a strong indication that that's where the source is. But we're still working on finding the exact traceback of the virus before Wuhan. We got access to quite a lot of data in many different areas. But of course, there are areas where we had difficulties getting down to the raw data, and there are many good reasons for that. In China, like in many other countries, there are restrictions on and privacy laws that forbid the sharing of data, including private details to outsiders, in particular if the data are moving out of the country. That would be exactly the same in most countries in the world if we were going there to do any studies, and we've done many studies in the past, and we always face the same challenges. Nobody would expect that this mission would have come up with the final answer and that we will have showed up at the end of the mission holding whatever animal in our hands and said, here is the culprit. That was never the intention or the expectation. This is work in progress again, and we all have to be patient and again support the logic of our work, which is to start from where the first case were identified, detected in Wuhan, and looking at that event, that phase, that environment, and then expanding the environment and the studies starting from that point and radiating out of it, following the leads that individual studies will give us. Lab accidents, of course, do happen once in a while. We've seen that throughout history in many places. So, of course, it's possible, and therefore it's also part of the conclusions in the report that it's not impossible that could have happened. But we haven't seen or been able to hear or see or look at anything that would warrant different conclusions from our side. But as you said, we haven't done a full investigation or audit of these labs or any other labs around the world for that matter.
still containment.
We are in uncharted territory.
Vital volume 450. Fire mo to 100%. Traffic back. Construction eh.
Welcome back. Malaysia has paid Singapore over $76 million compensation following the cancellation of a controversial high-speed rail line between the neighbors after years of stop-start negotiations. Now, the 350-kilometer or 217-mile railway was expected to cut travel time between the city-state and the Malaysian capital Kuala Lumpur to 90 minutes from the 4 or more hours by car currently. But the neighbors scrapped the project in December after failing to agree on charges or changes proposed by a new Malaysian government, which had taken power after a fall of a short-lived reformist administration. The countries have had fractious relations since Malaysia expelled Singapore from a federation in 1965, ending a brief and stormy union of the former British colonies. Malaysia paid 102.8 million Singaporean dollars to Singapore to reimburse costs incurred for the project, both governments said in a joint statement. Hendy said the amount represents a full and final settlement in relation to the termination of the bilateral agreement to develop the line. Singapore signed a deal to build the bullet train line in 2016 with the government of then Prime Minister Najib Razak. But its fate was thrown into doubt after Najib was defeated in elections 2 years later.
Around 1,500 medical workers and COVID-19 patients, many in full PPE, joined for a mass performance of the angklung, a traditional Indonesian instrument made of bamboo. The act marks the opening of the country's largest COVID-19 hospital, which has treated more than 70,000 patients.
Siap? Boleh kalau mau sambil... Bagus. Tiga.
There you go. Thank you, Eliana, for keeping me company today. You stay safe always. Stay healthy. See you soon.
Thank you so much, Alma. Stay safe too. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Oliana Faith Sebastian from EBC Vietnam Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.